My name is Monica. I'm 29 years old. For years, I've been the quiet sponsor of my brother's life. His streaming subscriptions, his groceries, his gas, his emergency bills. All of it came from me. I make good money, keep my head down, and everyone in my family calls me the responsible one. That used to feel like a compliment. At Christmas dinner this year, it turned into a weapon. We were all squeezed around the table, plates full, wine glasses raised, when my brother stood up and gave me that smug little smile I know too well. He clinked his glass and announced, "Cheers to the biggest loser in this family." He said it loud enough for the entire table to hear. The room exploded with laughter. Uncles, cousins, even my parents chuckling along like it was harmless. I felt my cheeks burn, but not from shame. They didn't know that for weeks I'd been quietly making changes. Canceling accounts, closing cards, pulling my name off anything that didn't have my signature benefit. So I stood up too. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just looked him dead in the eye, lifted my glass, and said, "And to the ones who just lost their streaming, grocery, and gas accounts." The laughter died, so fast it was almost funny. Forks froze in midair. My brother's grin vanished instantly. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice suddenly tight. My phone buzzed on the table. Another confirmation email. He glanced down, recognized the logo, and his face drained of color. In that moment, I wasn't the biggest loser anymore. I was the one who had stopped losing. I pushed my chair back. "You'll figure it out," I said calmly, and I walked away from the table while everyone stared at me like I'd just flipped the entire family upside down. If you'd looked at us from the outside before that Christmas, you would have thought we were a normal family. What you wouldn't see was the invisible spreadsheet that lived in my head, filled with my brother's bills stacked on top of my own. It didn't start with streaming services and gas cards. It started small. Pizza money when he was in college and forgot his wallet. A phone bill he was a little short on. A one-time rent top-up that quietly turned into every few months. By the time I was 25, my paycheck had two jobs. Keep my life running and keep his from collapsing. Every time I tried to pull back, someone would say the same line. "You know how he is. You've always been the strong one." At first, that felt like love. Then it felt like a trap. The first time I added everything up for real was on a random Tuesday night, months before that Christmas. I sat at my tiny kitchen table with a notebook, my banking app open, and a sick feeling in my stomach. Streaming subscriptions in my name, grocery deliveries billed to my card, a gas credit card I'd co-signed just for a year. Interest, late fees. The total I got wasn't just a number. It was a slap. I stared at it and asked myself a question I'd been avoiding for years. If this wasn't my brother, would I tolerate this from anyone else? The answer hit me harder than any insult he'd ever thrown. Absolutely not. The next day, I didn't have some dramatic epiphany speech. I just started quietly unfurling the safety net. I called a gas company and took my name off the card. I logged in and canceled the streaming profiles he practically lived on. I turned off auto-reload on the grocery app and let the remaining credits run out. Each click felt wrong and right at the same time, like I was betraying him and saving myself in the same breath. That's the thing nobody tells you about setting boundaries with family. It doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels like breaking a promise you never remember making. Of course, he noticed. "Hey sis, my grocery app says payment declined. Did your card expire or something?" One text read. Another said, "Netflix logged me out. Did you change the password?" I'd stare at those messages, thumb hovering over the keyboard, heart racing. For years, my instinct was always the same. Fix it. Explain. Apologize. This time, I tried something new. "I'm making some changes," I typed back once. "You're going to need to handle your own stuff from now on." He replied with a laughing emoji then. Sure. You love funding my lifestyle. Don't be dramatic." He had no idea I was dead serious. The more I pulled back, the louder the guilt got. My mom called one night, voice soft but loaded. "He says you're being cold lately. Is everything okay?" she asked. I wanted to scream. "No, I'm not cold.
I'm tired.
Instead, I said, "I'm just trying to get my own finances under control." She sighed. You know, he's not good with money. He's always looked up to you. I hung up that night with the question pounding in my head. Is protecting myself the same as abandoning him? But every time I checked my account and saw a little more of my own money still there, the answer shifted. Little by little, my resentment started to outweigh my guilt. By the time Christmas rolled around, I'd already built a new rule in my head. I would show up with a gift, a smile, and my own bills paid. Nothing else. No secret transfers, no quiet bailouts, no calling customer service on his behalf. I thought I could keep that decision invisible, just a private line I refused to cross. I underestimated how fast one public joke and one quiet boundary could turn into a war. Christmas Day felt like a test I hadn't studied for. On the drive over, I rehearsed neutral answers in my head in case my brother brought up money. I can't help with that anymore. You'll have to figure it out. I'm on a budget too. I didn't know if I was more afraid he wouldn't ask or that he would. When I walked into my parents' house, everything looked the same as every other year. Lights, food, the familiar clutter of half-wrapped presents. But the energy around the table was off, and I felt it as soon as my brother swaggered into the dining room. He had that performative confidence turned up to max, the kind he always used when he was hiding something. Same loud voice, same jokes, but his eyes were darker with a desperate edge that made me uneasy. He plopped down across from me, gave me a lazy salute with his wine glass, and said, "There she is, my favorite cash machine." A few people chuckled. I clenched my jaw and took a sip of water instead of answering. In the weeks since I'd cut the accounts, he'd sent a few texts that got increasingly sharp. You know, Mom worries when I'm behind. You act like I'm some stranger, not your own brother. The last one he sent before Christmas was just, "Don't make this weird on the holiday." Honestly, I'd hoped he might pretend nothing had changed. I should have known better. The Biggest Loser toast wasn't spontaneous. I saw it coming in slow motion. He'd had just enough to drink, just enough of an audience, and just enough simmering anger. He stood up, tapped his fork against his glass, and with a big smile announced, Okay, I'd like to make a toast." Everyone turned. I felt my stomach drop. "To my baby sister," he said, gesturing toward me. "The biggest loser in this family. She works all the time. No social life. Probably hasn't been on a date in 18 months, but hey, at least she pays all my bills." Laughter burst around the table. Someone actually clapped. My dad shook his head with a grin like, "That's our boy." My mom winced, but didn't say anything. For a second, my vision blurred. Not from tears, from rage. This was the script we always played. He mocked. I laughed it off. Everyone treated it like a sitcom. But this time, something inside me snapped into place instead of breaking. I stood up. The chair legs scraped the floor loud enough to cut through the noise. I lifted my glass slowly, waited until the room quieted, and smiled. A calm, icy smile I barely recognized. "To my brother," I said evenly, "and to everyone at this table who thinks it's funny. Because as of this week, you've officially lost my streaming, grocery, and gas accounts." Silence hit harder than any insult. You could almost hear the wave of confusion ripple around the table. My brother's smile collapsed. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. "You're joking." "I'm not." I held his gaze. "Check your apps. Check your card. I've been paying for your life for years. That ended days ago." He grabbed his phone under the table, fingers flying. I watched his face as he opened notification after notification. Payment declined. Subscription canceled. Card closed. "You did this." His voice cracked on the last word. I could feel everyone staring at me like I'd just doused the Christmas tree in gasoline. My mom whispered, "Monica," like she was warning me. My dad muttered something about not the time, not the place. But the funny thing was, for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the bad guy. I felt honest. I set my glass down. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "I'm done being the punchline and the wallet. Do you want to call me a loser? Fine. But I'm not financing the joke anymore." He started to argue, to protest, to throw half-finished accusations across the table. I didn't stay to listen. I pushed my chair back, walked out of the dining room, and grabbed my coat from the hallway. My mom followed me to the door, whisper hissing, "You're humiliating him. Couldn't you have talked about this in private?" I zipped my coat and looked at her. "I tried private," I said quietly. Nobody listened. Then I opened the front door and stepped out into the cold, my breath fogging in the air. Behind me, voices rose and overlapped. His anger, my parents' confusion, someone's nervous attempt at a joke. For once, I didn't turn back. I walked to my car with one thought pounding in my chest. If I go back now, nothing will ever change. The fallout started before I even made it home. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree in my passenger seat. First came the text from my brother. "What the hell is wrong with you? You embarrass me in front of everyone. Turn my stuff back on now." He alternated between rage and guilt trips so quickly it made my head spin. "You know I'm struggling. You know I depend on you. You want me to end up on the street." 18 months ago, those words would have sent me into panic mode. That night, they left me exhausted. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and drove in silence, the echo of his Biggest Loser joke playing on a loop in my head. Somewhere between my parents' house and my apartment, the question hit me again. Am I saving myself or destroying my family? I didn't have a clean answer. When I finally checked my phone hours later, the messages had multiplied. "My mom, call me please. He's really upset. Maybe you went too far." "My dad, we need to talk about tonight." "A cousin, girl."
Damn.
"Are you okay?" "My brother again. I can't pay for gas this week." "Are you happy?" The next few days felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded. On social media, he posted vague status updates about fake family and people who switch up when you need them most. I knew exactly who he meant. A few of his friends privately messaged me to ask if things were okay, then admitted he owed them money too. One of them sent, "Honestly, I'm glad you cut him off. Maybe now he'll stop using you like an ATM." Hearing that from someone outside the family hit differently. It made me wonder how long people had watched me bleed for him without saying a word. At work, I went through the motions, but my mind kept replaying that dinner. Every time I thought about caving and turning one of the accounts back on, I pictured his glass raised, his voice laughing, the way everyone joined in. Biggest Loser. The word stung, but underneath the hurt was something sharper.
Clarity.
We'd all been pretending this was a joke. It wasn't. One evening, 4 days after Christmas, I heard a heavy knock on my apartment door. Not a polite tap. A frustrated, open-palmed slam. My stomach dropped. I already knew who it was. I opened the door to see him standing there, eyes bloodshot, wearing the same coat he'd worn on Christmas, just more rumpled. He didn't wait for an invitation. He pushed past me into the living room. "So, this is it," he snapped, spinning around to face me. "You're really going to ruin my life because I made a joke?" "It wasn't just a joke," I said, closing the door quietly. "It's years of you treating me like a walking credit card." "I treated you like a sister," he shot back. "Family helps family." I could feel the heat rising in my chest. "Family doesn't mock the person keeping their lights on," I said. "Family doesn't drain one member dry and call it love." He started pacing, hands fidgeting with his phone. "My streaming is gone. My gas card is dead. My grocery app declined me at checkout. Do you know how humiliating that is? Do you know how humiliating it's been to beg my own bank for higher limits just to cover your mess?" I asked, my voice finally cracking. "To sit at that table and listen to everyone laugh at me while I'm the only reason you're not drowning?" He flinched at that. And for a split second, I saw the scared version of him beneath the anger. "I'm looking for work," he mumbled. "It's just hard right now." "It's been hard for you for 6 years," I said quietly. "Meanwhile, I'm working overtime, saying no to things I want, stressing about my future, so you can coast. How long am I supposed to carry you?" He stopped pacing and looked at me like I'd just spoken another language. "So what? You're done?" "Just like that." "I'm done paying," I said. "That doesn't mean I don't care about you. It means if you want your life to change, you have to change it. I can help you look for jobs. I can sit with you while you call the credit card company. But I'm not handing you my cards anymore." He laughed bitterly. "Wow, big deal. You'll cheer me on while I crash. Or you'll finally learn to drive, I replied. For a long moment, we just stood there, breathing hard, staring each other down. Then his shoulders sagged. You really mean it, he whispered. You're serious? I am, I said. Not because I hate you, because I love you enough to stop helping you destroy yourself and me with you. He shook his head and backed toward the door. You're going to regret this, he muttered. When I'm really screwed, remember this conversation. Then he left, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I sank onto the couch, my whole body buzzing with adrenaline and doubt. The boundary was set. The words were out. The accounts were closed. For the first time in years, there was nothing left for me to do but wait and see what he would do without me as his safety net. The next wave didn't come from him. It came from my parents. 9 days after that confrontation, my mom called and asked me to meet them for coffee. Her voice had that careful, too bright tone she used when she was trying not to scare me.
We just want to talk, she said.
No one's mad. That was never true. I showed up at the cafe and spotted them at a corner table. 2 untouched cups in front of empty seats. My dad looked serious. My mom looked tired. I sat down and braced myself. He's not doing well, my mom started, skipping hello. He's behind on his rent. He says you cut him off completely. I stopped paying his bills, I corrected. That's not the same as abandoning him. He feels abandoned, she said sharply. He's our son, your brother. My dad leaned in. We know he's made mistakes, he said. But this public humiliation at Christmas, canceling everything without warning, that was extreme, Monica. I felt my jaw clench. Do you know how many times I tried to talk about this quietly? I asked. How many times I told him and you that I couldn't keep doing this? They exchanged a look that told me they did know. They just hoped I'd keep doing it anyway. You've always been the stable one, my dad said. You're good with money. It's easy for you. I almost laughed.
Easy?
Do you know what my savings would look like if I hadn't been covering his life? Do you know how many trips, classes, or even emergencies I've skipped because I was too busy fixing his? My mom's eyes filled with tears. He told us you called him a leech, she said. Did you? I thought back. I hadn't used that word out loud, but I'd thought it in my darkest moments. No, I said honestly. But I told him I felt used, that he was treating me like an institution, not a person. My mom wiped under her eyes. He's talking about moving out of town, she whispered. Since nobody here has his back anymore. The words twisted something in my chest. For a second, panic flared. What if he really left? What if this spiral ended with him disappearing from all our lives? Then another thought cut through. Is it my job to keep him close by sacrificing myself forever? What do you want me to do? I asked finally. Turn everything back on. Pretend nothing's wrong. My dad shook his head. We're not asking you to go back to how it was, he said. We're asking you to find a middle ground. Help him get on his feet. Maybe pay for a few months while he looks for something solid. That's what I've been doing for years, I said. There's always another few months, another rough patch. When does it end? They didn't answer. They couldn't because for them it ended whenever I stopped paying, and they never believed I would. If you want to help him, you can, I said. He's your son.
You can co-sign.
You can open your own accounts. I won't judge you. But my name is done. My cards are done. My passwords are mine again. My mom winced like the word mine was dirty. So, you're really okay watching your brother struggle? She asked. I swallowed hard. No, I said. I hate it, but I hate watching myself disappear even more. The 3 of us sat in heavy silence, the noise of the cafe buzzing around us like we were in a different world. Eventually, my dad sighed. What if we set some conditions, he suggested slowly. We help him, but only if he shows proof he's applying for jobs, going to interviews. We don't just hand him money, we track it. It was so strange hearing him talk about accountability for my brother instead of just excuses. For the first time, I saw that my stand hadn't just rattled my brother. It had shaken them too. You can do that, I said. Honestly, I hope you do. But I can't enforce it. I can't be the project manager of his life anymore. My mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I don't want this to break you too permanently," she said quietly. "I don't either," I admitted. But maybe the version of us that existed before needed to break. It wasn't healthy. On the way home, that thought sat with me like a stone and a relief at the same time. Maybe this wasn't about being cruel or kind. Maybe it was about refusing to live in a system where my love was measured in direct debits and overdue notices. Still, as I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, one question refused to leave me alone. How do you know when tough love crosses the line into just tough? I didn't see my brother for almost 5 weeks after that. I heard about him in fragments. Through my mom, he missed a rent payment. Through my dad, he says he's looking for work, but I don't know how serious he is. Through a mutual friend, he's been crashing on people's couches, but he's burning through those favors fast. Every update felt like proof that cutting him off had consequences, and none of them were pretty. But they also felt like proof of something I didn't want to admit. That my support had been propping up more than his lifestyle. It had been propping up his denial. Then one night, my phone rang at 2 in the morning. His name lit up the screen. For a moment, I just stared at it, heartbeat thudding, wondering which version of him I was about to get. Angry, drunk, desperate. I answered. "Hello." "I'm outside," he said. His voice sounded small and raw. "Can you buzz me in?" I hesitated, then pressed the button. When he stepped into my apartment, he looked different. Not just tired, stripped. No performance, no swagger, just a man carrying the weight of his own choices for maybe the first time. "I got evicted," he said flatly, dropping onto the edge of my couch. "I have 2 bags in my car. That's it." The words hit me like a punch. "I'm sorry," I said softly. He laughed without humor. "Yeah, well, that's what happens when you live like I did and your donor finally cuts you off." I flinched at the word donor, but I didn't correct him. "What do you want to do?" I asked instead. "I don't know," he snapped. "That's the problem. I've never had to know. Something always came through. You, mom, dad, a friend, a refund, a bonus, a miracle. This time there's nothing." His eyes were glassy, but he wasn't crying. It was almost worse. "I lost my place. My car is on the edge of repossession. Half my friends don't answer my texts because I owe them money. And my own sister is the one who started this landslide." There it was. The accusation he'd been building toward. "No," I said quietly.
You started it.
"I just stopped cushioning the fall." "Same thing," he said bitterly. "You pulled the only safety net I had." "You had options," I replied. "You just didn't like any of them. Work you thought was beneath you. Budgets you refused to stick to. Help that didn't come in the form of my card." He stood up, pacing again like he had in my living room weeks earlier. "So what now, Monica? Do you feel satisfied? Was this your revenge? Humiliate me, watch me crash, teach me a lesson." The word revenge made my stomach twist. Had that been part of it? That night at Christmas, with everyone laughing at me, had there been a piece of me that wanted him to hurt just a little, the way I had? "I wanted you to wake up," I admitted. "I wanted you to see what your life looked like without me constantly patching the holes. I didn't want you homeless." "Well, here we are," he said. Mission accomplished. The room felt too small for both our guilt and anger. I took a deep breath. "You can crash on my couch for a few nights," I said finally. "But there will be rules. No using my cards. No logging into anything without asking. And while you're here, we're building a plan. Job applications, payment arrangements, a budget. If you're staying under my roof, you're working on your life." He stared at me like he hadn't expected that answer. "You'd let me stay," he said slowly, "but you still won't pay." "Exactly," I said. "I won't let you freeze, but I also won't keep you stuck." He sank back down, head in his hands. "I don't know if I can do it," he murmured. "What if I try and I fail again?"
Then you try again, I said.
And again. That's what the rest of us have been doing while you were outsourcing consequence. He let out a long breath. "You sound like Dad," he muttered. He finally started giving me the same speech. Said, "If your sister can stand up to you, so can we." That surprised me more than anything. My parents weren't just side-eyeing me for my boundary. They were slowly trying to build their own. Maybe this earthquake had shaken more than just my relationship with him. Look, I said, softening. I know this feels like I turned on you, but I swear this is the first time I'm trying to be your sister instead of your sponsor. He was quiet for a long time. Then what if I don't know how to be a brother without you fixing everything? The question was so honest it took my breath away. Then we both get to learn, I said. But it starts with you taking one step that doesn't involve my wallet. We can map it out together. I'll sit next to you, just not in front of you anymore, blocking all the consequences. That night, he slept on my couch while I lay awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering which direction this would go. Was this the beginning of his comeback story, or just another chapter in the same cycle? The only thing I knew for sure was that I wasn't going back to the old script, even if it meant watching him struggle longer than felt comfortable. Change didn't arrive like a movie montage. It came in awkward, messy, painfully slow steps. The next morning, I set my laptop on the coffee table, made 2 cups of coffee, and told my brother it was time to start. He groaned, pulled a pillow over his head, and tried to hide. I didn't nag. I just said, if you don't want to work on this, you can't stay here. I love you, but my home isn't a hiding place. That got him sitting up. We spent hours building a resume from scraps. Short-lived jobs, half-finished projects, skills he never thought were worth writing down. Every time he said, "This looks pathetic," I reminded him, "It looks honest." That's a start. We made a list of debts, a terrifying tower of numbers that made my stomach twist just looking at it. He kept apologizing for the total. I kept redirecting. Don't apologize to me.
Talk to the companies you owe.
Make arrangements. Take responsibility. Calling those numbers was its own form of punishment. I sat next to him while he explained over and over that he'd fallen behind, that he wanted to set up a plan. Sometimes the person on the other end was kind. Sometimes they weren't. Either way, he stayed on the line. That alone was new. Over the next few weeks, he applied for jobs he used to laugh at. Warehouse shifts, call centers, retail positions. I'm overqualified for this, he complained once, and I couldn't help myself. You're underemployed for anything, I replied. Right now, your pride is more expensive than your lifestyle. He glared at me, then grudgingly hit submit. He got rejected a lot. It was one of the first times I watched him face consistent no without numbing himself with jokes and distractions funded by my bank account. The weird part, somewhere between all the rejections, things between us started to soften. Not in a fairy tale way. We still argued. He still snapped defensively sometimes. I still lost my patience. But underneath it, there were flickers of something we hadn't had in years. Honesty without a price tag attached. One night, after yet another, we've decided to move forward with other candidates' email. He tossed his phone onto the couch and said, I really did think you were a loser. Not in the way I said it. Just I thought you were boring, predictable, responsible Monica who never did anything wild." I raised an eyebrow. "Thanks." He shook his head. "But now, watching you hold this line, watching you say no to me, to Mom, to Dad. It's kind of badass," he admitted. "I didn't know you had that in you." I snorted. "I didn't either," I said. Apparently, boring people snap too. We both laughed. A real, unforced sound that didn't have debt hiding inside it. Slowly, bits of his life started to shift. He landed a job at a distribution center. Grueling, early mornings, long hours. 18 months ago, he would have quit in the first week. This time, he stuck it out. The first paycheck he got, he waved it in front of me dramatically. "Look," he said. "Money I made that you didn't have to move around like chess pieces." I smiled. "Congratulations," I said. "Feels different, doesn't it?" "Yeah," he admitted. "It does." My parents adjusted too. They still worried about him, still slipped him help here and there, but they started sending him job listings instead of just sympathy. When he complained to my mom about his new schedule, she surprised both of us by saying, "Welcome to adulthood, honey," instead of, "Your sister is being too hard on you." Months passed. The accounts stayed closed. My savings slowly stabilized. I started therapy and realized how much of my identity had been wrapped around being the fixer. Letting that go felt like losing a limb and regrowing it at the same time. One evening, almost 11 months after that infamous Christmas dinner, we were back at my parents' table. The cast was the same. The energy wasn't. My brother sat down next to me, a little quieter, a little older in the eyes. At one point, someone asked to make a toast. My heart rate spiked for a second, muscle memory kicking in. But this time, he stood up before anyone else could, lifted his glass, and looked directly at me.
To my sister, he said.
The only person at this table who had the guts to stop treating me like a kid and force me to grow up. I called her the biggest loser last year. Turns out I was projecting. She was the only one winning. The table laughed, but it was a different kind of laughter. Soft, warm, edged with humility instead of cruelty. My chest tightened, and I blinked hard to keep the tears from spilling over. Later, when we were alone in the kitchen rinsing dishes, he nudged me with his shoulder. "You know, I still think you're a little boring," he teased.
Good, I said.
Boring people pay their own bills. He grew serious. "I'm not all the way there yet," he admitted. "I still owe money. I still screw up. But I don't expect you to fix it anymore. I don't want you to." "That's all I ever wanted," I said. We stood there in a quiet that didn't feel heavy for once, just real. People love to frame stories like mine as revenge stories. And in a way, it did start that way. That night at Christmas, when I raised my glass and cut off his streaming, groceries, and gas in front of everyone, there was a part of me that wanted him to feel the sting I'd been swallowing for years. But if you ask me now, I'd tell you this. The real revenge wasn't watching him struggle. It was refusing to keep sacrificing my future for his avoidance and forcing all of us to face who we really were without my money softening every blow. Cutting him off almost cost me my brother. It almost shattered my family. But it gave each of us a chance to become something we'd never been allowed to be before. Responsible for ourselves. And if you're listening to this wondering whether you're a terrible person for wanting to draw a line with someone you love, let me leave you with the question that changed everything for me. If this wasn't your family, would you keep letting them treat you this way? Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop paying for a version of someone that doesn't want to exist anymore and see who both of you become when the accounts finally close.